Greetings, fellow traders. It is Monday, August 28th, 8:01 p.m. Hope you're all having a great day and a good trading session. A lot of volatility coming into the markets in the last couple of hours. A lot of it due, of course, to the missiles that were fired by North Korea, which apparently shot over Japan and landed in the ocean. But interesting stuff nonetheless. So let's take a look here. Everything should be hooked up and going well. I am going to change my screen over here just to show you a few things before I talk about the trades that I'm in. Show you where I've been, where I'm going, all that kind of fun stuff. All right, let's see, where am I here? There we go. So one thing I wanted to bring up, obviously, I think if you're a trader, you know about the Jackson Hole Summit and how over the weekend, Friday especially, during the speeches of Draghi and Yellen, the US dollar got beat up and the euro gained a lot of strength. Now, my overall bias, if you remember, was that the euro was going to weaken after the Jackson Hole Summit, but I wasn't convinced enough to put any trades on. I also closed out of my trades in silver before the speeches began on Friday. And I'll show you those in just a little bit. But if you look at the Forex Factory economic calendar here, and you can use any economic calendar that you like. Today's a bank holiday out of Great Britain. We had moderate news that came out of the Eurozone, but really overall pretty light news day, okay? And tomorrow is going to be quite similar on Tuesday, August 29th. We have consumer confidence coming out of the US, and then we have Governor Wheeler speaking out of New Zealand at 8:30 p.m. Central. Those are the only two high impact news releases that are scheduled to come out. Now, that doesn't include all the things that are not predicted and not scheduled, like drama out of North Korea, for example. We're also dealing, if you're in a different country, which I know a lot of you are, with a major hurricane, tropical storm. Harvey is really beating up on Texas and Louisiana, and that is affecting some of the crude oil production here in the U.S. So the U.S. is expected to see a notable increase in gas prices over the next few days and next few weeks. We haven't seen quite a big jump here where I am, but it's supposed to go up 10, 20, maybe 30 cents a gallon because of the shutdown of a lot of the refineries there in Houston, Texas. The storms in Houston, Texas and the surrounding cities are sort of never before seen. They have over several feet of rain, and there's more coming. So that's a big news story right out of the U.S. Yeah, to be fair, there wasn't much time to trade after the last speech. You got it. You got it, Earbus. Hey, Kitchy. Nice to see you guys. So, looking at the news, I think tomorrow, this evening and tomorrow are going to be great trading days for me. I really like to trade when there's not a lot of high-impact news releases. U.S. stock markets, as you might be able to see here, let me zoom this in for you. You can look at whatever you like to see, as far as, or like to use for world indices. I still like to use this. S&P was up 1 point today. The Dow was down 5 points, and the NASDAQ up 17. So basically a flat day for the U.S. stock markets. All right. Donald Trump tweeting a little bit about the Texas National Guard helping out the flooded Texans, talking about historic rainfall in Houston all over Texas and more rain coming. So that's big news if you're not in the U.S. The other news out of the U.S. That's pretty big is the possible raising, and I guess these almost have to be, raising the debt ceiling in the U.S. and the NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. As you might be able to see here, let me get this centered up here, right in this area. Donald Trump said yesterday, the worst trade deal ever made. NAFTA is between, it's North America, so it's between Mexico, Canada, the U.S., and if the U.S. backs out of NAFTA, that will hurt the Mexican currency and also the Canadian dollar. We saw a little bit of that on the Canadian dollar many months ago. I forget if it was last year, if it was real early this year, but we saw the dollar CAD really move after Trump said that he might be leaving NAFTA. So we have discussions of the North American Free Trade Agreement. We have the big weather event going on down in Texas and Louisiana and that area that's affecting oil and historic rainfall. And then we also have Donald Trump talking about the wall between U.S. and Mexico, basically, saying he could shut down government if they don't fund the wall. So a lot of things going on here all at once, and there's more, of course. And then you throw North Korea in there and, that kind of thing. So a lot of stuff going on, not to mention tax reform and healthcare. So a lot of news coming out of the U.S. as far as volatility, uncertainty, and so forth. So those types of things can allow you the opportunity to make pips and capitalize on that movement. Next thing I want to show you is the momentum meter, because I think that's important to see. We see weakness all the way across the board here with the USD. And you can see the green, the USD has been below its 20 moving average all the way since back on August 25th, of course, which was the date that the Jackson Hole speeches took place. Before that, you might remember Thursday, Friday morning, Thursday night, things were consolidating and the US dollar got hammered and the euro went to the moon. And you can see the big discrepancy here. The blue is the euro, the green is the USD. Literally the strongest currency was the euro, the weakest was the USD. And now the USD is regressing back towards its 20 moving average. And the weakest currency is the Canadian dollar, closely followed by the Australian dollar, at least in the hourly time frame. The strongest one right up near the top is the Japanese yen. And a lot of that is due to the uncertainty with North Korea. So with those things being said, I think that just lays a decent foundation. And before I go over to my charts, what I like to do when there's, unrest across the world, global uncertainty, that type of thing, I like to sell the yen pairs, buy gold, buy silver. Hey, how's it going, Yo-Yo? Nice to see you. Hey, Nick. Kitschy. So let's take a look at it. I'll show you where I'm at, where I'm going. And here's what we have. So I did take a sell on the dollar yen. I'm out of that. And I am currently short in the euro yen. Now this is hindsight for you, I'm sure. If you didn't take part, it's going to be tough to get an entry back at the same point again in the real near future, 130.49. So I'd like to use this as obviously this pair moved down. I was up at the very tip at 80 some pips. Now I'm up about 30. I have my stop on the euro yen short locked in around 13 or 14 pips. But I want to just give you a little quick mini lesson. And some of you might not agree, but I'm just telling you what I know. One of the first things that I did when I heard about North Korea and launching the missiles is I pulled up my charts, looked at the volatility in the yens, and I went short. And rode it all the way down here and moved my stops down. Now I have some profit locked in. And we'll see, could have closed out way down at the bottom, but the point is going to make profits. I made some profits in dollar yen. I have one winner and one loser currently on the pound yen. I'll show you that here. But what I always do, I don't know if you can see it, but up where my cursor is, I have two lots up at the top and one lot down low. So that's my whole, sort of pyramiding in, scaling in strategy. I rode this all the way down and then back up, sold a little bit, and pulled my stops down closer. So the risk that I had on this first two lot order is the same or less than my total risk right now after adding in the second half size order. All right, so if I look at my terminal, the euro yen trade is up 580. The two lot pound yen is up 360, and the one lot short is down 80. So I'm up a total of 813. It's not, life-changing money by any means, but it's just one of those things where the fundamentals came into it. And I think the profit I took on the dollar yen was like 3 something, 350 or something like that. So it's one of those things. I didn't have enough time to post a trade idea. Obviously, it was a news release, and it was impulsive market movements. Usually those types of things, by the time you get a trade idea posted up, they've already, recoiled back and retraced. But just wanted to touch on that a little bit with you. Gold. I tried to take a long on gold when that happened, but of course there's 1 hour where you can't get in when the futures markets are closed. And I was trying to go long, and I looked at the clock and realized it was about 4 hours ago. And of course, gold shot up ever since then. The gold market, interesting. We had this wedge formation, and then we had the Jackson Hole speech where it took out the lows and took out the highs and took off. So what's interesting here, if you can see this chart, right in this area where I'm going to put a little square, I think it's pretty self-explanatory though. Right in this area, I know several traders personally who lost money in this area because of the volatility during speeches. There can be a speech or announcement anytime in any market. It's just one of the risks that you take the trade, and that's why you should keep your risk down 0.25%, 0.5%, 1%, 2%, whatever you like to risk. But what's interesting about it is, or the lesson, I guess, is during speeches, especially when there's multiple speakers at an event like this. Like I told you on, I think it was Tuesday and on Thursday night, Asian session before that, just get flat. Don't try to gamble your profits away, because even if you do well and you get lucky or you have skill, whatever it is, and you make profits, it's really hard to reproduce that over and over again. And the whole point of having Forex signals here, at least in my opinion, is to try to save you some of the headaches that traders like myself went through years ago. And this is one of those things. You think, oh, there's going to be a lot of profits to be made. Well, yeah, but it's hard to reproduce. And this is what it looked like. So the thing that's even more frustrating about this on gold is that not only do we move down and take out a lot of stops. I mean, this move down on gold was pretty sizable, about $10, but we moved up first. So then we had a bunch of orders, probably pending orders triggered if people were in the market. Then we moved down and took out the stops, and the market cleaned out those longs, unless you had no stops or, a lot of margin in your account. And then we triggered all the sell pending orders, and then shot back up right to the exact same point before things started. Right in this area here was right where gold was before. And then finally we jumped on the trend and became, and it started to move up. And then we have the little gap here over the weekend. I also agree. I think the gap up should have been a little bit higher on gold, but it is what it is. And then we had the day moving along, and here we are. So where are we going to go from here? That's what most of you want to know. Where are we going to go from here? If we look to the top side on gold, really hard to predict, right? I mean, 1,300 is the big figure. We're already past that. Next in sight, we have 1335, 1336, which is the wick that was put in on November 9th, aka the Trump candle. You can see the wick right over here at the top left. November 9th, that's when Trump won the US election. That's got to be the next target. I mean, there's just nothing else in between. There's really, there is no resistance on the upside for gold right now. So the way that I would recommend trading gold, if you're going to trade it, is to only be long, to try to get long when it retraces like it is now. If we can get back down to 1310, 1311, maybe even 1312 wouldn't be the worst time to take a long to the upside. There's just no resistance to the upside on gold. Silver, I closed out on, let me see where I got out of silver before Friday. Where was I here? Before the Jackson Hole. Let's see, 1728, 1715. No, that's where my stop was. 1709. Yeah, 16,977 to 1709. So I sat in silver this whole time. I collected a whopping $2.50 in swap on a 1.3 lot order and got out at 1709. 1709. Probably here with the spread, I would imagine, because I closed this trade in the morning before I left for the day. Where is silver going to go? I mean, is silver a better bet to the upside than gold? Well, there's resistance coming up a little bit faster in silver at 1774. So, which one do you choose to get into? I think gold's a little more clean. But either way, you can see on my charts here, I think pretty easily that I'm not in either trade right now. The only trades that I have running currently are a short in euro yen and 2 shorts on the pound yen. And I took profit on a short dollar yen earlier after the North Korea news hit the wires. Right on, yo, 1435 is your target on gold. I remember that. I remember it very well. For a long Euro Aussie. Yeah, let's take a look at Euro Aussie, Kitchi. Jenny says trade gold, no need to have. I don't know if you meant silver or stop loss. You got it. Yeah, gold longs I think are going to be doing good. We're at 1316.80 right now. Mark B, let's take a look what you got here. I like a little Dropbox file here and there. Euro Aussie daily. You got some good Elliott wave analysis there. I'm going to take a better look at that in a little while. Thanks for sharing. Let's take a look at Euro Aussie. So I'm going to get rid of this down arrow here. I'm still thinking about going over to TradingView charts because I do use them and they do look a lot nicer. I just prefer to have the charting package that most traders trade with, which is MetaTrader 4. Some of you use MetaTrader 5. Some use CTrader. I know some traders here in the group, they use TradingView for all their analysis and they just place the orders on MetaTrader 4 with their broker. But let's take a look. Euro Aussie. The area of support that we're watching now is 150.74, give or take a few pips. If I pause my chart and scroll over, yeah, I got that pretty close up at the top there. So we broke through 150.74 area. That was our resistance, and we came back down. So let's pull it in so you can see what's going on here. There we go. So Euro Aussie to the upside, yeah, I think it's looking pretty good. This pullback was nice, 60-something pips. We know that we don't have any major news coming out of Australia. We don't have any more news coming out actually for the rest of the day here, U.S. time. And tomorrow we're clean on Australian news until 8:30. So basically for 24 hours and 10 minutes, we don't have any news out of Australia. We have the high impact news coming out of New Zealand. So we got 24 hours here. Now, we do have a lot of strength, though, in the euro, right? So let's take a look at the euro pound. I always like to look at the euro pound. This is my old chart with the moving averages. Let's get back to this bear chart. We'll put the top up here, which is very important. We're right at that point right now. So it's interesting here, isn't it? Interesting point on the euro pound. This is the weekly chart. Depending on where you zoom in on your wick that was put in back on October 2nd, that real impulsive high week, 92.58. And if we look all the way to the left, the euro pound hasn't been this high, except for that day in October, since October of 2009. That's a long time. We're talking, 8 years. So one of the ways that I've been able to make the most profits with the Euro Aussie over the years is to try to play it when it's correlating with the Euro Pound. So this is the chart of the Euro Pound weekly, of course. Euro Aussie on the weekly looks a little bit different. Here's the Euro Aussie. Actually, it's the monthly. Let me get rid of this line. Euro Aussie monthly here. Euro pound monthly here. Euro Aussie weekly. Euro pound weekly. You know, trying to count waves on this weekly, trying to see the head and shoulders pattern on the weekly, that wasn't confirmed. There was no break in continuation here. Cut it back down to the daily. I mean, this is a trend that basically went parabolic, sort of like the price of Bitcoin, just straight up to the moon. So is the euro pound starting to run out of steam? Or are we simply just going to retrace back to this general trend line that we have here? Give or take a little bit. There's an external or a lower trend line and a higher trend line. That higher trend line could be drawn a little bit up higher like this. You know, give or take a little bit. So are we just going to retrace back down? Or are we going to sit stuffed right up near the top, looking to boil over? What's really interesting about the euro pound to me is if we go from the current candle all the way back 31 hours, so we're going back till the end of last week, right? Including the little gap and everything here. We've only poked up above this high by 10 to 12 pips at the top. Been rejected, rejected, rejected. So the euro pound, if you're going to sell this and try to pick tops, you could get just totally smashed, right? You're just trying to pick the top of a chart that's going straight up. But there is resistance here. That was put in October of last year. So if we compare that to the Euro Aussie, which was the whole point that I was trying to get to, if we look at the Euro Aussie, we've already broken through that resistance level and are looking to push up. The Euro Aussie to the upside, that move is not as overextended. We do have some resistance coming up at 52.20. That's a long ways, 140, 150 pips from now. I'm not quite convinced on this Aussie weakness, however. I'm just not quite there. Because we know there's euro strength. Let's take a look at the euro buck. I rarely look at the euro dollar, but I do. I'll tell you what, let me get rid of everything on the chart here and do a little bit of this analysis with you in real time. We're sitting at 119.70, give or take a pip or two. The little wick we put in on July 20, the week of July 20th, 2012. That's really the next area of potential resistance. And that's a good, what is that, 70 pips to the upside? Don't get me wrong, though. This resistance level that was put in 2012, just technically speaking, that's a pretty decent area of resistance to the upside. Other than that, we've already passed the other level we broke out of. That was put in back in 2010. But otherwise, you know, the euro dollar to the upside really resembles, in a way, in a subtle way, the price of gold. There's just nothing stopping it all the way up. Right? The question we have to ask ourselves, are the sellers starting to get exhausted? I'm sorry, the buyers starting to get exhausted? Is there some sellers starting to come in on this major area of technical resistance? Because if you look left back at this weekly chart, and I know I have it shrunk down just a little bit, what's the next area of resistance after 120.40 or so? There's just nothing. You know, euro to the moon. And if the euro is going to go to the moon, can you capitalize on that by getting involved in something like the euro Aussie or the euro pound and have a little bit less risk exposure in the markets? going to take a quick scan at the pound dollar. I mean, any way you cut it, the dollar is getting smashed, right? With the exception of the good old Aussie. The good old Aussie is not quite as clean. Generally speaking, over all the years I've traded, when the yen pairs move down, move south, meaning the yen gets stronger, generally the euro versus the Aussie goes the opposite direction. Now, it's not a tried and true correlation, but it's just something that I watch for. So since we're biased to the upside in the euro pound, I feel like buying the euro Aussie here might not be too much of a risk. Stops have to be down quite a ways. And if you really want to get precise about where to put the stops, I almost feel like you need to draw a rising trend line. This isn't going to be exact, but something on this order. I like to involve my my Fibonacci levels as well, because we had that broken downwards. Bear with me here for just a moment. This whole move up has one here. This last push up on the hourly, and then I'll zoom it out just a little bit for you, has here. Okay, we're going to take the most recent one and make it a little different color and a different line so it sticks out a little bit more. And what we can see then is a confluence of fibs along with this rising trend line, especially if we pull out the candlestick size a little. So what this is telling me is that your stops on this trade, at least in my humble opinion, if you're trying to get a nice long-term swing trade in, your stops would have to be at 50.53 or all the way down to below that area if you want to be more conservative, 50.33 if you can see it there. So this has to be your stop area, in my very humble opinion. So to get to the top of this area of support, it's about 30 pips. The bottom is about 50. The swing high is over 50, 55 pips. So I think this is a pretty decent trade. Now this stop is just a little bit larger than what I like to see. If I put it at 50.33. A little bit larger than I like to see on most of my trades. Now Euro Aussie does have a little more volatility, generally speaking, than something like the Euro or just the Aussie by itself, especially the Euro Pound, of course. If we cut it down to a shorter term time frame, 5 minute, got about 14 or 15 pips till the swing lows come in. We could see another push down, get a better entry price possibly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a long here, and we'll see if this price sticks above the swing lows of 50.70, 50.71 or not. I'm going to put a little marker right here. All right, so I'm not going to put a target on this because the target I think is going to be quite high. This is a pretty decent trade. We have Euro strength, we have Aussie weakness, we have the Euro Pound trending up, the Euro Aussie trending up. We have a trend line coming up where we might have some support, where it's a good place for our stops. Our support levels are closer than the swing highs, which means we have greater than a 1-to-1, even if our target was only at the swing high. And you can see as I talk through these things, we come up with more reasons why this trade might work out. And if it doesn't, we take some notes and we move on to the next one. You know, if my stops get hit, it's not going to break the bank and stop me from paying any bills or anything like that. We'll see how that settles out. That might be a nice little trade idea to post things. There's enough reasons why. Otherwise, I like the shorts on the yen pairs and the long on gold. This is the euro yen short, moving in more profit. Currently $715. Both of my pound trades are in profit now. One's $5.17. One is $1. Believe it or not. Let's take a look at that. $1 of profit. Where am I? There we go. I'm thinking I'm going to pull my stops down just a little bit more on the pound yen. Because if we take out the highs here, there's a pretty good chance that we could push up and have a retracement to the upside. So in other words, when I'm looking at this 5-minute time frame, I'm not taking a trade on the 5-minute, I'm just editing my stops, because we all know the pound can move. And I have, you know, fairly sizable orders here, a 2-lot and a 1-lot, so that's 3 lots on the pound yen. And if price moves all the way up here to the swing high again, we could be putting in higher highs and higher lows, higher highs. And I'm going to take and lock in myself 7 or 8 pips of profit on the first order and cut my risk down on the second. And again, if it breaks even, makes me a few bucks, I'm okay with that. So I'm just sort of talking through the way that I like to study the charts. Dollar yen might also be a good one to get short on. Either, you know, any of the yens. Aussie yen probably be a good one as well. Might be the best one, actually. Gold. I'm going to take a very small order long on gold, because if I take a small order long on gold, it's going to remind me to keep a close eye here. 1310. I'll put my stops at 1310. So this isn't the ideal entry. I didn't plan, you know, this entry out per se. My stops are down at 1310 here, but I just want to have enough in there just to remind me to keep a close eye on it. And if it does continue to push up, so be it. Because I have enough exposure now for my own risk appetite across my Euro Aussie trade and my 3 yen shorts. But as you might be able to see here, I'm avoiding the USD pretty much altogether, with the exception of the gold trade. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trades on. All are in profit, although gold is just tiny, $1.60. And that's how I do it. I mean, it's not, you know, it's an art. There's an art to it, and I'm not right all the time, obviously. I'm wrong a lot. But when you're wrong, trying to get out quick. I mean, there should be sort of 3 ways, and I'm sorry, I'm not looking at the chat here, but there should be three types of trades that you have in your trading account. You should either have little losses or little winners, or big winners, because there's no reason to have big losses. I mean, if you're wrong, admit it. You know, this stop on my Euro Aussie, which is down quite a ways at 50.33, I would love to pull that stop up a little bit, and I might, if we can get up around 150, 115, somewhere in this middle area here. This middle area on the Euro Aussie, this area would be nice for me to pull my stops up a little bit and cut down some of the risk. I mean, I really don't need 75 pip stop at that point. But if you think about it sort of psychologically, you should have little winners, little losers, break evens here and there, of course, and some big winners. There's just no reason to have big losers in your trading account. Now, could you have repetitive small losers? Absolutely, of course. But there's no reason to have big losers, especially if you never move your stops further away and you never add to a loser. My 2 rules of thumb. Those 2 simple things will save you a lot of money. What's up, Rourke? Nice to see you, man. Nice to see you. Let's take a look at the chat here. Sorry about that, you guys. Let's see what we have in the chat. Most yen pairs, Irba says, most yen pairs near the daily pivots and reversed off. Big swing, long, coming yo-yo, Trump and Dennis Rodman and Kim all in cahoots. Dennis Rodman. That's funny. It's funny but true, right? Dennis Rodman spends a lot of time in North Korea. Irba says, forget EA, should analyze dollar yen. LMG says, Jason, how do we trade silver? What news or currency do we see to trade silver? Well, I would rather trade silver than gold. However, my overall bias on silver, since before Jackson Hole came through, before the symposium came through with Draghi and Yellen, my overall bias on silver was to the downside. You can see I had one trade here where I shorted it. I pulled my stops down once I got some profit and controlled the risk, and it got my stop hit for just this tiny little bit. It was like 3 or 4 cents total on silver. And I got out with a small loss right here before, I told everybody just honest, transparent, that I closed in my trades before the symposium, and you can see what happened with the whip. So I haven't been in it since. But I just feel like getting long on silver right now, before we hit the swing highs that were put in, when was that? Back on June 6th, 1775. I don't feel like it's a smart trade. Now, is silver going to continue to push up? Probably. One of the reasons that I like to trade when the news is light, when all the stuff happened on Friday, we got the big asterisk with Trump and North Korea and what's going to happen. I think we will see risk quiet down a little bit. Well, maybe not. So the reason I brought that up was this. It came across Reuters at 7:48, so just a little under an hour ago. It says, United States, Japan, South Korea request UN Security Council meeting on North Korea missile launch. So that's basically saying we want to all get together and talk about this. But now it says U.S. military considering deploying strategic military assets to Korean Peninsula, out of Reuters. UN Security Council said to convene emergency meeting. All right, so there you go. That was out in the last 20 minutes, 15 minutes. So if there's political unrest with North Korea and the U.S. is starting to bring warships over, and then we can see the yens continue to fall, and we can see silver and gold rise. But right now, the point I'm trying to make is that I think gold to the upside is a safer trade than silver to the upside. All right. But if I were you, not trying to give you, trying to click your mouse and make you trade your money, but my overall bias is to be selling the yen crosses. That's what I think would be a smart play. Now, when you get in and where your stops are, that's up to you. You know where mine are at. Which one you pick. I mean, I think Aussie yen, which I don't trade, might be a better one. Dollar yen short. Let me write it right across this one here. I'll blow this up a little bit bigger. 5 minute that baby. And let's put this in here. So however you do it, I think sell yen crosses is the way to go. How big can we make that? About like that. Okay. I think this is a way that you might be able to make some potentially good money, overnight and during the day, wherever you are in the world. There was some chat, as you guys saw in the room, about daily pivots being hit, things like that. But what I like about this is, let's see, where's the best way to view this? If we look at a sort of imperfect trend line, on the pound yen. Now, I'm not trying to make this exact, but you get the idea. The pound yen gave us just a very, sort of clean technical area where it broke support. Now, this trend line could be up a little bit higher, but you get the idea. We are rising on the pound yen 30 minute. This is the gap from Sunday night or Monday morning, wherever you are in the world. This was our gap. We came down, we pushed up, and we broke down impulsively. We broke this trend line by about 80 pips, came up right around to where the trend line was and now pushed down further. So I think selling young crosses is the way to go. Use your own discretion, because I could be wrong. You know, I'm not betting all my account on this stuff. Those days for that and me are gone, long gone. I didn't touch much on the dollar or euro CAD. And, you know, to be honest, I'm really not sure what to think about the Canadian dollar. As you may know, it's my nemesis. But I do know that the price of crude is in a very interesting place. And with the uncertainty, with Hurricane Harvey, tropical storm now, just flooding out the Gulf Coast by Texas and Louisiana, you know, technically crude should come down. But with refineries being closed down, we have the crude oil inventories, I believe, coming up Wednesday. Is that right? Yeah, crude oil's Wednesday at 9:30 a.m. Crude oil inventories might not show a shortage of crude from this storm until maybe next week. And we all know what else we have coming up Friday, right? One of the biggest news releases in all of Forex, the non-farm payroll. We also have the ADP non-farm payroll employment change on Wednesday. So I'm going to avoid the CAD because of my uncertainty in the price of crude and the storms here in the US. I'm going to play this risk with North Korea. You know, like any other normal human being, I don't wish war or storms on anyone. But as a trader, our job as professional traders is to take advantage of any fluctuations that the market gives us and try to turn those into profits. So that's what I'm trying to do and take my best shot at it here with y'all. South Korea Air Force fighter jets dropped bombs on firing drill grounds. Interesting story there. Take a look at that. Roof Hunter 251. Jason, I have long dollar yen. Should I close? I would, but that's up to you. I mean, I sold it and took my profits. Let me get rid of all the stuff on my chart here. Just ask yourself, you know, ask yourself what you see on the charts. This is the 4-hour time frame dollar yen. Except for this bar that we just ran through, the low was 108.60s. And if we leave that line on our chart, you can see that we came back through impulsively and pushed back up. If we get down below 108.60s, I think all bets are off for the dollar yen to go down. Or that all bets are off that it's going to rise. I think dollar yen is going to fall. So long story short, if you're currently long dollar yen and you're trying to decide what to do, you might hang in there just a little bit longer. I mean, I wouldn't. You could get lucky. We could push up 20, 30 pips before pushing down again. But 108.60, I think, is a key point. And if we really crank it up to the 5-minute, which, you know, I don't recommend doing a lot, but when you want to really just get into the nitty-gritty, this area right in here is the key zone, in my humble opinion. 109.04 or so, and then the 108.60 area. So we might bounce in here for a while. I don't see it shooting straight up to the top. I could be wrong, but if you're long and you're losing right now, or you're negative, I would definitely have a stop around 108.60s, 108.59, just to protect some of your account. Keep an eye as well on your news squawk, whatever it might be. Whether you use, what is it, Talk Forex, Talking Forex, whether you listen to watch Financial Juice, whether you watch Bloomberg or CNN or whatever news you like, or you just watch Twitter feed. Or you can just stay tuned in to your favorite room, forexsignals.com. Because I can promise you, if there's missiles starting to fly, the yens are going to fall. I mean, that's as certain of a trade as I can give you. And gold is going to rise. Euro Aussie is likely going to rise. You can maybe see why, in my own opinion, this is all that I trade, what's on my chart here. Looks like my video has my gold cut off down here, but gold's still looking good to the upside. I think that, you know, unless there's some big news release, I think we're okay there. But watching some of these majors, euro dollar, pound dollar, Aussie dollar, and the similar yens, euro yen, pound yen, dollar yen, euro Aussie, euro pound, dollar CAD or euro CAD, and then silver gold. I keep an eye on the DXY and crude as well. And between that, that's all I need. Some of you prefer, I know, New Zealand dollar, Kiwi. Some of you like to trade Aussie, New Zealand. Depends what you're comfortable with and what you've done the most of. I've traded what you see on my screen here for over a decade, and I can be wrong just as much as anybody else. But if I'm wrong, I usually have at least some inkling of why I'm wrong. Where if I was trading something like the Aussie New Zealand or the Swiss yen or something like that, I just wouldn't have as much bearing on it. And there's enough trades here. Good job, LMG. If you're taking pips, take them. Nothing wrong with that. Roof Hunter 251. Yeah, you got it. And you can see, you know, Roof Hunter 251. My answer was sort of a little bit of a runaround answer, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if dollar yen shot up and then came back down. I just don't see it moving up real aggressively unless there's some kind of recourse. Unless there's some kind of delay, you know, in the news. Let's say we hear that they're going to do a meeting tomorrow night or in 2 days or something. Then it's a little bit less dramatic. Reuters reporting headlines from South Korea news agency Yonhap, citing Blue House, saying the U.S. military is considering deploying military assets to the Korean Peninsula. So, you know, if you're trying to get in a swing trade and you're not trying to scalp, I think if you stick to this rule, you'll be okay selling yen crosses. Might have some whips coming around, but I think you'll be in better shape than not. Right on, Earbus. Very good point. And if you're watching this on video and you can't see the chat, Earbus typed in light of the news, one would think the impulsive yen move is showing the way. Everyone has stopped to think about it. That's right. Exactly. Yeah, it's a good post too, Jenny. Euro hits 2-year high, but North Korea missile fire is the big story. And here in the U.S., the big story across the news is the storms in Houston, Texas. Crazy, crazy storms. If you're tuning in late, Hurricane Harvey, tropical storm, has just been circling around the Gulf Coast, Texas, Louisiana, dropping several feet of rain, flooding out everything, shutting down refineries for crude oil. It's also a big hub for crude. There's also a lot of offshore oil rigs in that area. those aren't even as big a concern now because the wind isn't really bothering. It's more of the inland. And just from my own, biology and chemistry days, and I like watching the news and not the news, but the weather. I always consider myself like an armchair meteorologist, always interested by that. But what was interesting listening to the story about the storm is that I think that you all know, wherever you are in the world, whether you call it typhoon or hurricane or tropical storm or depression, whatever it might be, the hurricane is really strong when it's over the warm water. And then as it goes over land, of course, it starts to weaken. But its track circled back and made a loop. And there was so much flooding on the ground that it was actually strengthening off all that warm water that was flooding all the land. So it's almost like the land was becoming the Gulf of Mexico and feeding the storm again. So very just sad situation down there for people. So that's what I have. If you're tuning in late, I have a short euro yen, 2 shorts pound yen, 1 short dollar yen that I took profits on, no longer in, and I have a long on gold, and then this long on the euro Aussie. And if there's a possibility for war, what pair of benefit? Not hoping for it, though. That's right. I mean, that's the point we brought up. I mean, we don't wish war on anybody. I mean, it's just a scary, sad thing. But if it does transpire, I think selling the yens, euro yen, pound yen, maybe Aussie yen, dollar yen, and buying gold. I think that's the way to go if something happens. And remember what I told you about holding trades over the weekend as well. When there's all this uncertainty coming in on a Friday, now I know it's not Friday now, obviously it's Monday or Tuesday, wherever you are. But if there's uncertainty, you want to be on the side of the uncertainty. We expect the charts and the pairs to have this sort of organic breath and retrace and continue, especially when there's not a lot of planned economic news. But if there's more, as London awakes and sees this news hit the wires, we expect more volatility and more momentum to push the direction that we're finding here during the generally more quiet Asian session. So just remember those things. I mean, Asian session, lower volatility, lower liquidity. And if we can pick out the trends during Asia, during these quiet hours, a lot of times during the as it starts to open in Germany and the London session starts out, we can see that momentum continue to push through. So it's a good time to possibly add to trades with smaller orders and move your stops closer. It's also a good time to take profit if you can get an impulsive move. If this Euro Aussie pushes up 40, 50 pips around the swing high, it's a great place to take profits. Since I know that the long-term target on the Euro Aussie is way up at 152.20s or so, what I'm probably going to do is move my stops up at that time. So I'm going to try to make some of these into some trade ideas for you, but I hope that you all have a great day trading, a great night, and I hope that you glean some good information from this. If not, it's good to learn from everyone else in the chat room as well and share ideas and take all the stuff that you feel is important and make it into your own trade plan. So I will see you all tomorrow. I'm going to be here tomorrow all day during Tuesday. I'll be doing a US session review and an Asian session review, as well as on the chat during the middle of the day, sort of still filling in, taking over for some of the time that Andrew is gone. And he'll be back, I believe, next week. Until then, make it a great day. Take care.